Okay. Now, we investigated Duffield Street, and the primary residence was 227 Duffield Street. That was the home of the Truesdales, Thomas and Harry Truesdale. And they were very much involved in the Underground Railroad, and they were very much involved in the anti-slavery movement. Now, they didn't live, well, they did live a long time in Brooklyn. They came to Brooklyn roughly 1840. They came to Brooklyn, and they came to Duffield Street in late 1850. And they lived there till roughly 1862 when Harry passed away. And so they lived in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, and Brooklyn Heights for over 20 years. Okay? So to say they were not really Brooklyn residents is not true. But they spent most of their life in Providence, Rhode Island. Okay? I think they were married around 1812. Okay? And they lived in Providence, Rhode Island up until 1838. So for more than 25 years, they actually lived as a married couple. And they were not, that's one thing I like about the Truesdales. They were not great people. I mean, they were great people, they were ordinary people who did great things.
All right.
They were ordinary people, they did great things. They were ordinary people. He was basically, for his married life, he owned a store. He was a store owner up in Providence, Rhode Island. Okay? But he did great things. He was from the very beginning involved in the abolitionist movement. Okay? And experts or historians say that the modern abolitionist movement began with the publication of The Liberator by William Lloyd Garrison in 1831. Okay? And they knew Garrison. Maybe not too well up in Providence, but they knew Garrison, and they particularly knew his in-laws, or his future in-laws, the Bensons. Okay? So generally speaking, they were Garrisonians. And calling them and calling anybody a Garrisonian meant that you were against the colonization society. You didn't want African Americans to leave the United States and go settle someplace in Africa like Liberia. Okay? Actually, few people know today, but Liberia began as a colony, founded by African American slaves. Okay? So you didn't want that. Garrison certainly didn't want it. He actually apologized. In an early issue of The Liberator, he apologized to everybody for joining the American Colonization Society as a young man. Okay? So he didn't want that. And most African Americans, and there were quite a few free African Americans who lived in the free states who did not want that. Some wanted it, but most did not want it. They were here longer than anybody else. They should be treated as equal citizens. That was their attitude. And that was the attitude of William Lloyd Garrison. And that was also the attitude of the Truesdales. Okay? And that's the interesting thing about the Truesdales, as I said. I don't know of any great pamphlet that they wrote. I don't know of any speech that they made. Okay, so they were ordinary people, but they did extraordinary things. Okay? I mean, they weren't, but they knew some extraordinary people. They knew Ralph Waldo Emerson. They knew Horace Greeley, the Go West young man kind of guy, and they knew some very famous people, but they knew, of course, William Lloyd Garrison. Today, most kids don't know who I'm talking about. When I was a kid, I had to take history in 4th grade, there was a picture I still remember of William Lloyd Garrison haranguing a crowd, saying slavery was evil, slavery was terrible, you name it. Okay? So back when I was in school, most kids, not every kid, but most kids knew who you were talking about. You were talking about William Lloyd Garrison. He was a very famous abolitionist. Today, I'm not so sure. We once had at the Queens Historical Society, we once had an exhibit on slavery, Underground Railroad. And we had a section of the exhibit on William Lloyd Garrison. And I was showing a very good class, Columbia University kids or something like that. And not one kid knew who I was talking about. Not one kid who attended Columbia University, okay, I think they were sophomores and juniors, Okay? Not one kid knew who I was talking about. That was not true. That would not have been true 40, 50 years ago. Most kids would have known who, again, not all kids, but most kids would have known who you were talking about. Okay, well, to make a long story short, Garrison, the Truesdales knew William Lloyd Garrison. And they were Garrisonian, okay? Meaning they hated the colonization society, and they wanted the immediate end of slavery. They didn't want a step-by-step approach, and they certainly didn't want to see slave owners get some money, you know, for having slaves. They wanted an immediate end of slavery. The Liberator was published, and William Lloyd Garrison existed. He was influenced by the Second Great Awakening, the religious revival of the 1820s. So for the first time, slavery was being called a terrible sin. It wasn't being called a mistake, it wasn't being called, well, it's bad, it was being called a sin, okay? And so you would stop sinning right then and there, and you would end slavery as soon as you can. You wouldn't pay off somebody for sinning, would you? Or you wouldn't pay off a slave owner. Okay? So that's what the idea was. That was the idea of the modern abolitionist movement. And the man who's credited with founding the modern abolitionist movement is William Lloyd Garrison. Okay. Well, anyway, the Truesdales, when they were in Providence, Rhode Island, most of Thomas Truesdale's abolitionist activities centered around the Rhode Island Anti-Slavery Society, which was a branch of the American Anti-Slavery Society, Garrison's group. Okay? Harriet Truesdale, most of her activities centered around the Providence Female Anti-Slavery Society, the Providence Female Anti-Slavery Society, which may have been the first group in the early 1830s. It may have been the first group to adopt the Garrison approach to anti-slavery. Okay? In 1837, in New York City, there was what was called a Women's Anti-Slavery Convention. It was meant for women. It was meant to be run by women. The American Anti-Slavery Society, Garrison's group, probably sponsored it, but they did not attend. It was being run by women or women. It was being attended by women. And some people feel it was the beginning of the women's movement. Yes. Okay? Some people actually feel it was the beginning of the women's movement because women from 10 states got a chance to meet, and they got a chance to have committees, the whole committee meetings and the pass resolutions, do all the things that politicians do, I guess. And that was always very, very important. That's right. It was the Women's Anti-Slavery Society. We don't know if Harriet Truesdale attended that Women's Anti-Slavery Society, but we do know that she attended the second Women's Anti-Slavery Society meeting, Women's Anti-Slavery Convention meeting in Philadelphia. Okay, she went there because she was a delegate. She was a delegate from Providence. She was chosen as a delegate from Providence. And when she got there, she was put on the business committee, which kind of helped run the slavery convention. Okay? Unfortunately, it was being held in Philadelphia, and it was being held at what was called Pennsylvania Hall, which was a beautiful building that had just been built to hold reform meetings. Okay? Unfortunately, a mob showed up at the same time, and you know what happened. The hall got burned to the ground. Fortunately, nobody was killed. Fortunately, nobody was killed. But that was more or less the end of the meeting. But before it ended, sort of tragically, before it ended, women that you heard about today actually took part in that meeting. Like Lucretia Mott, she spoke at that meeting, and according to those that heard her, she was very good. And Sarah Mack Douglas, yes. Okay, you heard about her today? She was the treasurer of the convention, Okay, and the Grimke sisters, Angelina Grimke and Sarah Grimke, again giving very good speeches. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that she was very. What I'm trying to say is they were very. The Truesdales were very good anti-slavery people, and they were very radical anti-slavery people. People who supported Garrison were regarded as radical. Okay, because of Garrison and what he said and what he believed. Okay, so anyway. Around 1837, when the convention, actually before the convention was over, the Truesdales came to live in New York. And they first lived on Pearl Street. Okay, to Pearl Street, you know, in Lower Manhattan. Okay, and then they moved out to Brooklyn. Around 1840, they moved to Brooklyn. They first lived in Brooklyn Heights. And when they lived at Brooklyn Heights, William Lloyd Garrison visited them. When they lived at Pearl Street, William Lloyd Garrison visited them. He says in a letter that he visited many times, and he called them friends. Okay, so he was they were very much supporters of William Lloyd Garrison. Now he went to meet them in 1840. Okay, this is very important, 1840, because he was about to go to London to the World Anti-Slavery Congress. Okay, he was one of the delegates. He was supposed to go there, and a couple of women were also elected as delegates, like the woman that we heard talk about, who I just forgot, whose names I just forgot. They were elected as delegates. Lucretia Mott, I'm sorry, Lucretia Mott. When they got to London, the people in charge of the convention did something very stupid. They said the women were not to be given their seats. Lucretia Mott and the others were not to be given their seats. Okay, it was for men only. Lucretia Mott, being Lucretia Mott, was very, very mad. She was very angry. William Lloyd Garrison, in support of Mott and all the others, refused to take his seat. He refused to participate in the World Slavery Congress. Again, he was very much, as were the Truesdales, very much a supporter of women's rights. So Garrison would not take his seat. Lucretia Mott met with I forgot her name, Susan B. Anthony. Met with Susan B. Anthony, and they said, from now on, we're going to have a women's rights convention that's going to deal with women's rights issues. As important as slavery is, it's not going to deal with slavery. It's going to deal with women's rights issues. Okay? And that was a step forward. And they did hold a convention in a place called Seneca Falls. Okay? It was the first women's rights convention, but it grew out of the fact that the man who ran the World Slavery Congress in London said no, and it more or less grew out of that. So they didn't meet in 1848. They met in Seneca Falls. The women met at Seneca Falls, but it wasn't entirely a women's rights conference, because one of the speakers was Frederick Douglass. Okay, and he spoke about the connections between. He said women were like slaves. He said something very important. Women were like slaves. So it wasn't certainly an anti-slavery Congress or an anti-slavery Congress. They invited Frederick Douglass to come to Seneca Falls and make a speech. Okay, that was one of the few men who attended that conference. So that's why the Truesdales liked Garrison. He was for the immediate end of slavery. Okay, he didn't want a step-by-step approach. He was for, it was a sin, and you stop sinning. Okay, so he was for the immediate end of slavery, and he was for women's rights. Okay, and that was very important. That was very important to Garrison. It was very important to the Truesdales. Okay, so thank you.